We are seeking retribution for all the podcast haters out there. We're here to let everybody know that if you're listening to other wrestling podcasts, you're making a grand mistake. Tune in to DocNJock every single Friday, or else Adam and his $1 million belt are going to come whoop your ass.
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski, and this is episode 145. On today's show, we've got an update on what's going on with this NXT superstar, as well as a monster deal for an MVP at WWE. And what the hell's been going on with Kevin Owens? We got the inside scoop there, as well as Doc's Impact review. And of course, we're going to talk about the biggest topics and trends going on in the wrestling world. Doing it with me, as always, he's my Cinnabon. He's my toaster strudel. He's the one I call Cuz, and you call him Cuz too. He's the one. He's the only. He's the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, Pop-Tart?
We are seeking retribution for all the podcast haters out there. We're here to let everybody know that if you're listening to other wrestling podcasts, you're making a grand mistake. Tune in to DocNJock every single Friday, or else Adam and his $1 million belt are going to come whoop your ass.
Can you slide this in right after the DSP sounder, right before our intro song?
Absolutely. You like that, huh?
I do like that. That was really, really good. Since you brought up Retribution, why the hell not? Let's just start here. What do you make of this new faction, Retribution? They're suggesting that they're avenging some sort of wrong that has been done to them.
I was a little disappointed. I mean, masked men tearing up a ring. We've seen it before. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's unique. Yeah, it's something that is new to the show, but Retribution, I guess the questions are there. There's a little bit of intrigue, but for me, it just was like, okay. Let's see who's behind this and what's this all about. I was actually more fascinated by what occurred on Raw and some of the storylines that evolved there than anything really that happened on SmackDown. But Retribution, okay, they promised it, it delivered, and it had the believability. They cut down the ropes, and they tore shit up, and it was something that was part of the show that was advertised, and here it is now. We got to wait and see to figure out what this all means.
So what if I was to tell you, there's some rumors swirling around this group, right? So the group is going to consist of members who aren't really the hooded and masked figures that are portraying them right now. But what if I was to tell you one of your favorite superstars from the past was going to be the ringleader of this group? What if I was to tell you that the person behind Retribution could possibly be CM Punk? Would that change your outlook on this group?
That would be fascinating. I had not read that. I haven't been up to date on the dirt sheets. I've been watching a lot of live wrestling. That would be fascinating if it culminated in that. That would take it from a 6 to a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10 of excitement if CM Punk comes back and finally brings wrestling full circle. Wow, cuz, is that what's being somewhat discussed and behind the scenes?
So CM Punk, he's great for a weird tweet here or there. And he ended up tweeting something over the weekend that basically pointed to Retribution and pointed to this group. He actually used the word Retribution in the tweet. So that stirred up a bit of controversy on Twitter and with people talking that he might be the ringleader of this group. Now, from what it sounds like, Donovan Dijakovic is going to be part of this group as well. As far as the other members go, I'm not 100% sure. But early speculation is that CM Punk is teasing that he might be part of Retribution. And I think if he is, wrestling fans, your heads are going to explode, right? Every wrestling fan is just going to go absolutely bonkers here because that would be badass. I don't know if it's going to happen. This is just something that has been thrown out into the ether. He's kind of teased it on Twitter. A couple wrestling publications have picked it up and ran with it. So it's going to be fascinating to see what they end up doing here. I mean, and think about this, right? WWE is so desperate right now because AEW is just kicking their butt every which way. And if you could go out and grab CM Punk, give him a buttload of money, and let him do whatever it is that he wanted to do, right? You basically give him the Hulk Hogan deal where you've got free creative control of your character. I would say to an extent, because you don't want a guy to ruin a wrestling company like Hulk Hogan ruined WCW. You have freaking creative control to an extent with your character, but we're going to let you come in and we're going to let you do what you want with these guys. Would you not do that? Would you not bring him in and let him run his own group on SmackDown and on Raw and even have them cross over on NXT? Because I know for me, I love AEW. Generally, when I watch wrestling on Wednesdays, it is AEW first, NXT I watch and fast forward. I would tune into all three of these all the time.
Yeah, especially thinking about what the compensation would be. How much money would a guy like CM Punk garner? I mean, you're talking probably in the neighborhood of $5 million a year, 2-year deal, $10 million, a lot of guaranteed money. A certain degree of creative control would be outstanding, and I think he'd have to jump on it. But the thing that, again, you have to always keep in the back of your mind with Vince McMahon is at the drop of a dime, he could change paths. And without full creative control, I could see a scenario in which CM Punk would start putting people over. That's how bad WWE has. I mean, look, you had the Bullet Club. You don't take advantage of that. You tease that. You never have it. You have so many guys that are so underutilized that you still have to put in question how CM Punk would be utilized. Would he be there to be fodder for Drew McIntyre? Would he be then putting over? I mean, the first thing I'd want to see right away is AJ Styles versus CM Punk.
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
like to see that. Yeah, I'd love to see some of those matches. But I just want to see him utilized properly. And that would probably indicate a year or two run with the belt because he automatically would come in as number 2. I mean, right behind AJ Styles. Okay, maybe 2 or 3 at best if you put AJ Styles, Drew McIntyre. It'd have to be him. He can't be putting over the likes of Kevin Owens, the other young talent that are there. I don't want to see him in the ring with Seth Rollins and then Seth Rollins getting put over. You know what I mean? I want to see him right there at the top. AJ Styles, Drew McIntyre, I want him in the ring among the big dogs right away. And it would be great if he's in there, Retribution, and then come in with the first appearance being a scathing promo of the last 3 years of WWE. It would set the wrestling world on fire.
It'd be fantastic. It would get you to tune into a program like SmackDown. It would get you glued to a program like Raw. And I think you would have to move NXT above everything else if he was to appear on any one of those shows. You said Raw garnered your attention a little bit more than SmackDown. So let's transition over to what happened on Monday night. I do want to first start off and grab your thoughts on what took place with Seth Rollins, who did call out CM Punk in a promo, and it really pissed off Vince. So again, there's a little bit more of that, adding a little bit more fuel to the fire. But Seth Rollins, Buddy Murphy go crazy with kendo sticks on Dominic Mysterio. I don't know if you've seen photos of Dominic's body after this segment, but Jesus Christ, this dude took an ass whipping. I mean, purple and black and red and blue, and if you want to pull out a crayon color from your box of 64, he has it on his body, and they are all in kendo-shaped stick marks. What did you think of this segment? It was absolutely brutal, and it sounds like when we go to SummerSlam, it's going to be either a no DQ or some type of a hardcore match between these two.
Is this some kind of weird wrestling initiation that a lot of these guys on WWE and AEW want to now prove again how tough they are by taking thumbtacks to the back or taking a massive wallop on kendo sticks? I always love, though, in terms of beatdowns, I love when a wrestler is in the ropes and they get caught up. I would love when a professional wrestler during a match would tie up their wrestler. I think that's underutilized. Every once in a while, you can put an opponent into the ropes like that and then whoop on them. But not with kendo sticks. I mean, kicks, you can punch, you can, maybe even some chair shots. But the kendo stick was absolutely violent. It was brutal. And Seth Rollins, it definitely, for the purpose of adding intrigue into their rivalry and the storyline, kudos, man. Dominic, if you're going to try and build your brand that way, you got my respect for taking a whooping. And yes, I did see the photos, and they were intense, and that shit was scary.
I mean, it seemed like it started off gentle enough, as gentle as a kendo shot could be. And then as it kind of progressed, I don't know about you, but it felt like there was a little bit of real heat and a little bit of real anger in each one of those Seth Rollins hits. And dude, I thought it got a little bit aggressive. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying this is Dominic's first forte into a wrestling ring, right? He's not had a career match anywhere. Not in the indies, not in another promotion, nowhere. He doesn't even really bump around the Performance Center all that much. He took a legitimate butt whipping that most seasoned vets wouldn't have taken. I thought it was absolutely crazy. I thought it was cool. I thought it was good. It was interesting. It was a little bit entertaining. I just thought it might have been just a scotch over the top. Something else maybe a little bit over the top. Randy Orton. Something that I think we seen, or at least I seen it as it was unfolding, ends up turning on Ric Flair. And as this took place, I was like, Randy Orton is legitimately the legend killer. He goes out and takes out everybody, even Ric Flair. I want to know if this is going to have a lasting effect and interfere with his match at SummerSlam. And if you think it does, how does that unfold?
Yeah, it was, the highlight of my notes on Raw. I was like, what does this mean for Ric Flair? Who could potentially now come to the rescue? Does this set up a potential? Because the dirt sheets, I think a couple weeks back, and you even talked about it, potentially having Charlotte get in the mix here for a long-term feud or a feud, as far away as WrestleMania. And when I was thinking about that, my notes say Charlotte, #no. Because, look, Randy Orton is a star. Charlotte is a star in her own right. I don't want to see them highlighting a WrestleMania match. And I just put in my notes, anybody else could come to the rescue of Ric Flair. It could be Andrade, could be Triple H, it could be anybody else not named Charlotte. I don't want to see a culmination of that. Like I said, after this matchup that we're going to see at SummerSlam, I think that Randy Orton should continue to be at the top of the card and continue to be causing havoc. I don't want to see this because, if we're reading between the tea leaves here, there could be a slow build again with Triple H. Then there could be a build with Andrade, who is now Charlotte's fiance. So there's a tie-in there. And you could have other members, maybe even Batista come back for one more. You could have a bunch of people come back trying to respect the honor of Ric Flair. But in my mind, Randy Orton is a top guy, and I don't want to see him against Charlotte. So it's going to be fascinating to see where it goes forward. But, yeah, I was not surprised in any way that Ric Flair took an ass whooping. I think that's what he was brought on for, was be kind of a storyline pusher. And what better way to do it than with Ric Flair? Now the key is, what do they do next? If this builds to Charlotte, Randy Orton, it's a no-win, because are you really going to have Charlotte beat up on Randy Orton? That would end his career. I just couldn't. I mean, look, not to be chauvinistic or anything, but Randy Orton is a top guy. He does not need to be engaging in intergender wrestling. It has no purpose. Charlotte's already made. She needs to start getting into some real storylines and not one in which she's defending her dad against Randy Orton. Pass.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I'm going to give you two scenarios, how I see this kind of playing out with Ric Flair intertwining with Randy Orton. So the one way that it intertwines with Randy Orton winning at SummerSlam and becoming the new WWE champion, new WWE Universal Champion. Ric Flair ends up coming down with Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre is now his knight in shining armor. He's the one who comes to his rescue. Ric Flair at SummerSlam interferes in the match, turns on Drewy Mac, and it was in a total elaborate scheme from the get-go between Randy Orton and Ric Flair because they knew Drew McIntyre would come to his aid. So that's one scenario. The other scenario, and this way Drew McIntyre retains his belt at SummerSlam, and that is with Ric Flair coming down to the ring during the match as Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton are getting into it, and he interferes and he low blows Randy Orton while the ref is distracted, setting up for Drew McIntyre to pin and, again, retain his belt. They prolong this story, and then we get to see it somewhere down the road at, I don't know, the next big, what is the next big pay-per-view? It's Royal Rumble's not till what?
Survivor Series.
Survivor Series? Oh, so then we'd see it in Survivor Series then. So I don't know if you like either one of those, but that's kind of how I seen that playing out. Was there anything else on Raw that kind of caught your attention?
That was the highlight for me.
That was it?
That was the part of it that I liked. I thought Raw was a little bit better. I'm trying to get more into, the underground wrestling, but Raw Underground, I see the purpose of it. I see what it's doing. It's producing a ratings bump, but it's something where, I don't know, it's not as believable as it needs to. It just comes across as way overproduced and
so cheesy, man.
Yeah, exactly. I just, my notes say here, Raw Underground, one camera. That's my note. Leave it at one camera and produce it that way. But when you have cuts to the inside, outside, move by move, and you produce it in the WWE way, I just find myself getting turned off. And look, to be honest, now that you've introduced it, I don't need Shane McMahon hosting it. Just air it. I think that would be better if you just had two dudes standing there and they do their thing, and that monster that they had destroy the dude was cool. I don't think you need someone there just hyping it up, because Shane McMahon, I think, is doing a disservice. I don't like him there, but it didn't seem to turn off the viewers at the clip that I thought it would. People seem to kind of embrace anything that isn't what WWE is putting on. So it is what it is, and it's still there, and I think it's going to be on for a couple more shows.
Do you think that Raw Underground would be better if it was filmed and shot more how the UFC films and shoots their fights?
Yeah, it could be done in that manner. Have a little bit more of a traditional feel to it with some announcing, but with Shane doing the hyping, and it just seems, like you said, cheesy. And I'm looking for more beyond that at this point in time from WWE. So that was Raw. It was decent. If you go check it out, you won't be disappointed too much. It definitely held some interest, especially with some of the matches on the card. It was a good show. I mean, Asuka getting a win was cool. I like what I'm seeing with Bayley and, Sasha Banks and that whole Asuka thing. Now, here's a funny part that was hilarious that my wife picked up on. So my kid was just going through the network, and she was flipping on a Raw from like 3 to 4 weeks ago when it was Bayley and Sasha taking on Asuka, and then Kairi Sane came back as a surprise. And my wife was picking up on it like, wait a minute, why does Asuka still have the belt? And I said, hon, this is the network. Olivia put on Asuka because she saw her on the marquee. And she goes, oh, okay. So we flip back to Raw, and Raw has another match with Asuka taking on, I think, Bayley or Sasha Banks. And I'm like, yeah, it's still going on. And Andrea was like, oh, real original programming. And I was like, yeah, I know. We kind of need to move on from this. But fine, Asuka's in the mix again. And it was nice to see her get a win. And it was nice. I thought Raw was pretty entertaining for what it was. It didn't drag too much. We got a chance to at least criticize some angles as opposed to the things that made no sense in the weeks past.
Yeah. Do you want to stay with basically the schedule going Friday, Monday, Tuesday, or do you want to just kind of stick WWE, AEW, Impact? Where do you want to slot Impact in next? Because it's your review on Impact.
Yeah, I got it right here. I got my notes. I think it's right. It's perfect right after Raw because it makes sense because it comes on right after Raw. It's the Tuesday show. I thought it was good. I got 3 highlights. One, the best part of the show was Gallows and Anderson made their debut, and they were just so ferocious and intense. They were used better in their one segment on Impact on Tuesday night than probably their entire run. They were believable as the dominant tag team on Impact. It was great. It was nice to see them utilized and highlighted. And I think that's how they're supposed to be used is, look, these are 2 bad dudes. Don't mess with them. Don't get in their way. That was point number 1. They got on Impact. They made an impact. People that see that show on Tuesday will say, wow, Gallows and Anderson deserve to be the top of this division on this show. Number 2 is something that has appeared now and I guess has been a feature for a minute, is something that I'm just not a fan of because it just distracts me and I don't like it. This thing called Wrestle House they got. It's like this weird, corny, background, comedic.
I feel like it's Brazzers TV, but for wrestling.
Shit. Yeah. It comes on and I watch it and I go, I don't like this. And it's just a hodgepodge of shit going on and you can't, like, I guess there's a lot of inside stuff that I'm probably behind on where there's references made, there's dudes all over the place. It's unique. It's kind of this comedic relief of wrestling in a backyard. It's really weird. Me personally, I'm not a fan. If you disagree, hit me up at Detroit Podcast. I'm not a fan of it. It's a little too much. It distracts and takes away from, I mean, you have a great segment with Eric Young debuting and defeating Willie Mack in a great match. You're like, dude, this is serious. This is good. Good start. Then you kind of move into this Wrestle House nonsense. It kind of deterred a show for me that I thought was an A. It made it a B. So I just thought that, okay, let's move on from this Wrestle House. Put it on every 2 weeks, not every week. But the other highlight for me was Eric Young really establishing himself, opening match. Willie Mack held his own, but the show started off classically, and the rest was okay. The women kind of underwhelmed. The rest of the card, outside of those 3 highlights, kind of underwhelmed. I would give the rest of it a C. But those 3, I think, really hit home a show that if you're fans of Eric Young, fans of Gallows and Anderson, their storylines are emerging and really, really allowing you to grasp onto something if you're a fan. So I'm looking forward to seeing the retribution that Eric Young gets, getting some wins, getting over, and Gallows and Anderson made the show for me. So I'm excited, and I'm excited for next week's Impact.
So I totally followed the show from afar, and I think everything you said was extremely accurate. I thought it was the way it was produced, the way it was kind of put together, seems like it was a fantastic show. Seems like it was better than what we got on Friday night, and It seems like it definitely rivaled what we got on Monday night.
But absolutely, the women got to do better. I think WWE setting the standard for women's wrestling, and it's an era of quality wrestling, but the women on Impact, they got to step it up. They got to find a trainer or somebody to teach timing, psychology, the whole package, because if you get to the women's match, you'll understand. Just fast forward through it.
All right, let's move on to Wednesday, and let's start with NXT. So something that I absolutely loved about NXT, and it had to do with Io Shirai. Now, Io Shirai, obviously, she is Asian. I believe she's Japanese. What I loved that they did was the way they produced her promo made her seem like such a legit badass.
Absolutely.
So it was done while she was speaking Japanese, and it had subtitles. And then at the very end, she said, "I'm pissed off." And you got that 'cause she said it in English. It made her seem almost, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but it made it seem like she was a badass ninja. It is really and truly the way it came off to me. She seems so legit as their champion, and it is the way that she should be portrayed. What I don't understand is they've got it figured out for Io Shirai. Allow Asuka the same luxury. Let Asuka do her promos this way. Don't have her come out here and scream unintelligibly and look like a deranged lunatic. Just do what you do for Io Shirai. It's simple.
Exactly, and it's believable. It's over. It's awesome, and it's something that fans can gravitate towards, and it's more believable than what you got with Asuka, because I think Asuka can speak English. I do believe that she has the ability to put those words together. That lunatic thing is not becoming, it's another character I think that could be even, I mean, once you had her have her streak and get off to those wins, it feels like she's never gotten back to that big level again, and that's not good. You know, the character's got to be able to develop, and maybe she just needs one little shift, maybe a manager, maybe a mouthpiece, maybe another faction with a couple other young up-and-coming stars would handle business. The other part for me of NXT that I liked was Velveteen Dream kind of emerging as a badass mofo. And I think that was perfect in the manner in which you portrayed him. I think he kind of slipped off a little bit as after a couple of losses, he kind of dipped to the background, you know, with Keith Lee and, the Undisputed Era kind of taking some of the shine. Now Velveteen Dream is back and he's whooping ass. And I like when he got on the ropes and he handled his business and he kind of was like, yeah, look at the shit I can do. And he looked believable a little bit more than he has in weeks past. So my note was star, Velveteen Dream, keep it going.
Yeah, it was nice to see him be brought back. I love him with Finn Balor. I think Finn Balor is such a badass, especially in NXT. So it was good to see those two have a stare down at the end of that match. I do have a question for you before we transition into AEW. Big match, the big setup here, Adam Cole versus Pat McAfee.
Yep.
You've seen Pat McAfee deliver one hell of a boot to Adam Cole last week. Pat McAfee, a great mouthpiece. He can talk with the best of them. We've not seen his in-ring work. Do you think at TakeOver 30, Pat McAfee will be able to hold his own with the likes of Adam Cole?
If you tell it right, yes. Because you have to believe that they would never put him in a TakeOver. Remember, TakeOver, there's time. It's not going to be a 5-minute match. We're talking 15 minutes minimum. I think you can set it up with power moves, slow down, kind of like a Kevin Nash. Just impose the fact that this is a big, strong guy, and you kind of have to do it a little bit more. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see a frenetic pace. I think what you do is, you have a tie-up, you have the headlocks, you have, body slams, suplexes, kind of, a lot of work in the ropes. I don't think we're going to see Pat McAfee doing a bunch of moves in terms of throwing Adam Cole into the ropes, runs and things like that. I think it's going to be more of a slowed down pace, more like a pace where, when McAfee's on offense, punches to the back, body slams, and a lot of playing to the camera, like, look at me, look how badass I am. And then eventually, if they do it right, then Pat McAfee's bravado will get him beat, as Adam Cole will take advantage of a moment when he can pounce and then should get the victory. In no manner do I think that Pat McAfee should win, but I think he'll hold his own, but you got to pace it right. You got to have it, and I think that he's been training. You don't deliver that kick and you don't put yourself in a takeover against Adam Cole, baby, unless you've been training. And I expect him to deliver. Or if I'm totally wrong and they do it a la the way they have had other celebrities, and you put McAfee over, then you just have it, boom, kick, suplex, couple moves, Adam Cole gets in a couple, and then boom, McAfee wins it. Maybe with a surprise entrant, maybe someone else that has beef with Adam Cole could come in and, some wonky finish that involves some aid to Pat McAfee to further the story. So we shall see how this progresses. But if you want to move on from Adam Cole in NXT, maybe you have a beatdown with Pat McAfee and an undisclosed cat that hates Adam Cole. So I can't wait for it. I want to see it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think he will hold his own. Remember, this dude is an athlete. I know he was a punter or a kicker in the NFL, but this guy, he is an athlete, and he's been training. He's been working at this for a while now. I think he will do a good enough job. Plus, Adam Cole is the type of wrestler who can make just about anybody else look good. All right, let's transition over to AEW. I want to know what you thought of that new TNT Championship Belt. This is something that good buddy and listener of the podcast, Putty and myself, were talking about, I think it was a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and Putty wanted a black strap and he wanted a gold belt. Well, you got the new redesign of the TNT Championship Belt. It was not a black strap. They stuck with the red one, but you did get some gold in there. Do you like it? What'd you think?
Yeah, it's worthy. I'm not for all the changes all the time. I like continuity, but, the belt kind of has evolved a little bit to look more prominent. Mm-hmm. And I liked seeing Brody Lee hold it, too. So that was cool. I thought it was interesting. And the manner in which now that there's going to be a Saturday show, they set up Brody Lee versus Cody Rhodes. Hey, I'm all for it. I thought the show set up great. AEW was a great show. I thought it was all around, it's set up to be what was heralded as Tag Team Appreciation Night. And at first I was like, I kind of want to see some individual action. We got that. I got my fix because the hype surrounding Scorpio Sky and Cody was out there, and it lived up to the hype. Good match. I kind of don't need 12 people coming out with Cody. It's a little bit much on the eyes, but his entrance is unique and it's great, but I don't need 15 people coming out with Cody. You don't need that big of an entourage. Just your brother, just your wife, maybe the dog if need be, but the rest don't need to be there. Other than that, first segment was pretty sweet. Started off with some wrestling. Cody Rhodes' match was pretty good, and the tag team action throughout the night was stellar. It was good. It was nice. It was nice to see.
For Cody Rhodes, I only need the whole entourage for big events. So like a pay-per-view or something monstrous. I don't need it when you're taking on Scorpio Sky, right? Like if you could just come out with Arn Anderson, we'll be good. You did hype up the tag team celebration and tag team celebration night. So I want to get your thoughts on what took place with the tag team celebration that ended with FTR beating up Rock and Roll Express. So I'm assuming this is our heel turn now for FTR, and this is our setup for FTR versus the Young Bucks. What did you make of all of this?
I loved it. It was great to see Arn Anderson. Tully referenced Arn Anderson in a year ago. You had the Rock and Roll Express come out there. That was cool to see. Old timers. For those that don't know, you youngsters out there, go Google Rock and Roll Express. They're amazing performers, and the Young Bucks put them over. It was cool to see promo from the older guys, from the vets. And it was nice. And then the surprise was it was set up perfectly by FTR, believing that they were hurt for a second, setting it up nicely, and then boom, the surprise, whooping on the Rock and Roll Express. So that was cool. And that move, it came off powerful. It came off like, okay, we put a hurting on somebody. And that's what you want. You want believability. and you had, Omega and Hangman come out, and Hangman's holding a drink. So that's that was funny. So I loved it. I thought it played out perfectly. Everybody showing appreciation, and it set up perfectly for FTR to establish themselves as, hey, we don't care. We have appreciation, but we're the new tag team. We're it. And let's start running roughshod over this place. So they told a story, and it was good.
Yeah, I think now you have your badass heel faction or team in AEW with FTR coming in and being the undeniable monsters of that tag team division. You did observe something, though, in the main event. And I want to get your observations on Chris Jericho. We had a Chris Jericho Orange Cassidy match. The stipulation was for, $75,000, whoever wins this match to replace the jacket that Orange Cassidy dumped orange juice and orange pop and oranges all over that. Now, if you ask me, I think it looks way better than that cream color that he used to wear. I love the orange. I think it's great. Anyways, Orange Cassidy ends up winning this match. Mike Chioda is in the match, and he comes over from WWE. There was this big hype around him. I thought that was kind of cool a little bit. I thought it was cool, but I'm going to say this. You would not ever see a huge wrestling organization hype up a referee the way AEW did.
Right?
I felt like it was.
Oh, Mike Chioda. I was like, okay.
I felt like that was small time.
Exactly. But you know what? I did respect that throughout Tag Team Appreciation. They brought up the Hardy Boys. They brought up older WWE wrestlers. So that was fair because, at first when Hangman and Omega said, my favorite tag team of all time is the Young Bucks, I thought, oh, come on. Reference, Legion of Doom, Demolition. The Hardys I get because Matt's there, so that was fine. Before I get quickly to my review, props to MJF. I mean, that promo was great. When he walks out, he's just believable as a badass heel. And then it was great storyline development with Jon Moxley coming out whooping his ass. That was just perfect. And because you want to see MJF get his ass whooped. I love his music. Dun, dun, dun. It's great entrance music. And I love the fact that he pushed the young dude away. He's like, get out of my... He had someone give him gum in the hallways. That was great. MJF, his character is just taken off to the highest level. He always deserves a little bit of props. Now, you get to the main event after a great show. You get to the point where you're like, all right, it's excitement time. It's Chris Jericho. And look at you, Big Money, making up big numbers. The amount of the match was only 7,000. I
thought it was 75.
Yeah, you're a big baller now, so I know that the 4 digits are beneath you, and you can't handle it because you're rolling in the hundreds and George Washingtons. But us guys, hanging with the Lincolns, we got the money number right, $7,000, and we get the match, and Cassidy lives up to what he's doing. Slow builds, then he picks it up. Unfortunately, the way the match was with commercials, Jericho puffed out. Jericho looked swole. He looked, a little bit like
chubby.
Yeah, he looked swole. He looked like he'd blown out a little bit. And you could tell when older wrestlers start doing moves, what starts happening is it's like move, and then some heel work. Move, put your arms up. Move, throw them out of the ring commercial. So there were built-in pauses for a wrestler who's slowing it down a little bit. And I was thinking during the match, too, wow, this is year 2 of Jericho's 3-year run. He's 48, 49 years old. He still tries. He still gets on the ropes. He still does flips. He plays the hits, but it's not as fluid as it needs to be. They're good matches, but they're not main event matches. And that's where I think the big star factor now with this contract might have to shoot that email over to Mr. Khan and say, look, Jericho's great, but he's not the A guy anymore. He needs to be the mouthpiece of Hagar. He needs to be the mouthpiece of Sammy Guevara. He needs to be the mouthpiece of your Boricuas. You need to kind of have an advancement and a decline in the positioning of Chris Jericho. Yeah, he's great. He's the demo god. He's got all the nicknames. He's the merch man. But it doesn't make a difference if you put him on second to last as opposed to main event. I know Orange Cassidy, you want to feature him, but my note says, you know what? It would have been better off to have the ending shot of Dynamite be Dynamite. The ending shot needed to be Moxley, your world champion, destroying a dude. That's a beautiful produced ending shot. A dude's talking shit in MJF. Moxley comes out, destroys him, looks into the camera, boom, boom, end shot, end scene, go home. I just felt like the match was a B-plus match, and it was good, but not good enough where I need to see a trilogy. And the finish was botched. It looked like some move was put together, like, some kind of sweep or whatever it was, but it did not. An ending is important to me in a match, and there was botches. There were mistakes, and the ending of that match, I don't think was quality enough to go, wow, Orange Cassidy won it. It was a little bit wonky. And look, you want to build up Orange Cassidy. You've done the job, but now it's kind of, I don't know. I'll ask you, do you think this is worthy of a pay-per-view number 3? I'd say no.
After the first match, I was all in for a trilogy. After what we got the other night, I'm going to say no as well. I don't think it necessarily hit the way it should have hit. But after the first one was, I don't want to say it was classic, but it sure as hell felt pretty classic.
Yeah, better than this.
Yeah. This one, it left a lot to be desired. And you're right, the ending was not stellar. It was...
You know what? You just got to end it. Move on.
Yeah.
You know what you do? It's time. You got to transition from Orange Cassidy to Hagar. Because Hagar's taken a run at him 2 times now. It would make sense now that the bigger dude gets retribution for Jericho. Jericho's pissed. He lost. And it's beneath him. He's got to play the smug, arrogant angle. It's beneath me to wrestle you again. Even though he lost, he's got to come out with the angle of, you know what? It's a fluke. I got bigger and better things to worry about. Hagar, take care of business and get the retribution. He's got to move on to the next guy that he needs to put over and have a feud with. It's time for next.
Yeah, I think you're not going to get it that way, though. I think you're going to get one more.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
And we'll see from there. But look, I get what you're saying, and I think you're accurate in the way you laid it out and what you said. I think you have every right to feel the way you feel. It's just, I don't know what you're going to do. I mean, Jericho is still a huge draw. He's a huge name. I think at some point he does have to. Look, who am I to call a man out about his physical fitness? I do think at some point, though, he does have to somehow take a step back and maybe adjust what he's doing when he's not in the ring.
Yeah, exactly. All right, good stuff. Good AEW progression, NXT. It was a good week of wrestling, but now I'm fascinated. I'm curious. Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list? What news do we need to all know about?
So it turns out NXT superstar Dexter Lumis's impressive front flip out of the ring in his triple threat match with Finn Balor and Timothy Thatcher will cost him quite a bit of time. Brian Alvarez noted on F4WOnline.com that the ankle injury WWE announced will keep Dexter Lumis out of the North American Championship ladder match at NXT's TakeOver 30. It is a legitimate injury. However, right now it's unclear how long Lumis will be sidelined. It's totally disappointing for a guy who was really headed to the top of the NXT charts. This was a guy who a couple weeks ago we talked about who grabs my interest every single week he's on television. This weekend, WWE superstar MVP announced that he has signed a new multi-year contract with WWE. The financials and the terms are not specified at this moment, but he's going to be sticking around. And have you wondered why Kevin Owens has just kind of been floating around aimlessly on Raw, just here, there, doing stuff with the Riot Squad, not really doing a whole lot of anything? Well, it sounds like he was supposed to be feuding with Seth Rollins yet again. But Rey Mysterio not signing, then not signing, and then opting back into WWE has pushed Owens to the back while Dominic gets a push to the forward. So, I don't know. It's WWE. They do all these crazy, perplexing things. I don't get it. You don't get it. I don't think Kevin Owens gets it, and he works there. And in some sad news, former WWE star Kamala has died at age 70. WWE announced this on Sunday. Kamala, whose real name is James Harris, had significant health issues in recent years resulting from his diabetes. Doctors diagnosed him with diabetes in 1992, and through the course of his struggles to take care of the disease, he's underwent kidney dialysis treatment in 2011 and also had 3 of his toes removed because he didn't control this. In the end, it all caught up to him on Sunday. And that's it for this week's wrestling news and notes, my man.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you agree or disagree with any takes that we provided on this week's episode or any episode that you catch feel free. Let us know. We'll have a debate. We'll discuss your thoughts on the world of professional wrestling. Oh, good stuff. Thank you, everybody, for subscribing to our network. All you got to do is go to your favorite place, anywhere where podcasts are located. Type in these 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast. And when you hit that subscribe button, our daily content will find you. And we got great content talking about Michigan. Adam does 2 other fine broadcasts, the Throwback, in which he relives the Detroit Lions, early part of the 2010s. I think now you're on the 2012 season, looking into 2013.
No, we're on the 2013 season now.
Nice. Moving along, and you're, oh my God, reliving the woes of the Detroit Lions this decade. And Adam and Brendan also host the Practice Squad, where we get a little bit too much information regarding these fellas' lives, but it's a great listen. I tune in every week, and I find myself going, did he really just say that? Yes, he did. And it's every week, Thursday. Check it out, the Practice Squad, the Throwback, and the marquee podcast on the network, Doc and Jock. Great podcast, cuz. Look forward to another great week of professional wrestling. Let's do this again next Friday.
Be safe, be well. Can't wait for next week, bro.